You're listening to the Access Success Podcast, produced by Access U, a division of Access Advertising and Public Relations. Hey, let's do something big. I'm your host, Rachel Schneider. Welcome to the Access Success Podcast, where we highlight important topics focused on education in every form it takes. In the past, we've interviewed influencers and content creators who've amassed success on TikTok and Instagram. Today, we're introducing you to some local full-time YouTubers with over 2 million subscribers who tune in every week to hear their latest fandom theories and reviews, from the Marvel Universe to Disney to Harry Potter and so much more. For over a decade, Ben and Jay Carlin have been known as the Super Carlin brothers, and the success of their YouTube channel has also spawned plenty of merch, a coffee company, a podcast, and as if these brothers aren't busy enough, they're doing it all here in Roanoke, Virginia. Please welcome the Super Carlin brothers, Ben and Jay Carlin, to the show. Thanks for being here today, you two.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for having us here.
I know, this is really cool. We really like your entire studio space here.
Yeah, this is fun. It's fun. Like, we've set up so many little sets around our own office. It's like, ooh, someone else is doing this.
I know,
looks so good.
It's like we never get to stumble in somewhere else where it's already been done. No, it's beautiful.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. And you guys have a specific intro, I think, that you do on your episodes, right?
Oh, we sure do.
Yeah. Do you want to hey, brother?
Yeah, sure.
All right, so 3, 2, 1.
Hey, brother. Wow, that was a little loud.
Did we do a little peeky?
Did we peek? Yeah.
I think you definitely did. But thank you for that. That was great.
Absolutely. Everybody's like, well, my ears are not happy now, but yeah.
We'll level it out later. We'll fix it in post.
Perfect.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So to set the scene for everyone here, back in the late 2000s, the two of you were making videos in your basement and posting them to YouTube. What was the YouTube scene like back then for a creator?
Well, back then, this was, I guess, around like 2012 when we were starting Super Carlin Brothers. Like, it's so funny because at the time in 2012, if you were like getting into the scene, there was this like big feeling like, I'm already too late. If only I'd started in 2007.
Yes.
And it's like nowadays, like you go to like, we meet other content creators and they're like, oh my gosh, you started in 2012. Oh my gosh, it's so hard to break into YouTube these days. And it's like, oh man, maybe we were more ahead of the game than we thought.
I know. Yeah, we've worked with like a handful of folks in the industry who have referred to us as legacy creators.
Yeah, we're old. We get it.
Which is a term that we had never heard before. And when someone said that to us, we're like, wait a second, what?
Yeah.
What?
Legacy.
Because it really was a thing, you know, like everybody who was big and the people who were inspirations for our channel when we were starting off, you know, they all started in 2007, 2008, right as the platform really was created.
Right.
And there was a lot of news at the time about people like Philip DeFranco, for example, who did like a news segment, who was starting to make like a real career off of being a YouTuber.
Yeah.
And it really did feel like we were already too late. And I think that, you know, it's like one of those things where obviously as time goes on, it's like, I think the morsel of inspiration to take away is that you're never too late. You know, there's still that opportunity to dig in.
Yeah, there absolutely is. I think probably in 2012, there was a much more like, a much more forgiving audience. Like the phrase YouTube was like, yeah, you make, you know, videos, which is still what people do. But like back then it felt like there was a lot more people using, you know, their handy cams and stuff. Like the camera and the technology wasn't quite as like consumer ready as it is today. The editing software wasn't as approachable.
Yeah.
So like there was a more like there was like a greater amount of forgiveness on the viewer's end, whereas like today it feels like, at least on YouTube, it like needs to look a lot more polished and stuff. But then I think that's great where things like TikTok, where it's just like that's just people holding their phone in their house, and it's still like it's like very low budget friendly, and that's very cool too.
Absolutely. And we've even found with something like TikTok that like our approach to it almost comes across as like overly polished and not appropriate for the platform. So it's like it's sort of like a little bit of both sides depending on where you're kind of like, you know, putting your content.
Yeah, that's so true. I mean, just remembering when I first started watching YouTube, it was like either music videos or America's Funniest Home Videos. It's just like the raw content. And then you started to see more of like the you know, I don't know, Fred and like Jenna Marbles or those people come to mind of those days. But now, it's so polished. There's so many content creators on there. What made you want to start a YouTube channel in the first place?
Oh man, so back in 2009, That's when I started my first YouTube channel, which was called John Carlin. That you can still look it up and check out the videos if you want, although I wouldn't recommend it. They're not very good. But I was in college at the time, and I was major at Virginia Tech, and I was majoring in mass communication. And I just happened to be like a really early adopter of like that side of YouTube where people were making content specifically for YouTube rather than just uploading like otherwise viral videos that YouTube was sort of known for at the time. And so I would just be in my room watching Community Channel or the Angry Video Game Nerd or the Vlog Brothers, and I realized at some point I was watching more YouTube than I was like TV. And then after a while, it also occurred to me that a lot of the people I was watching at the time were just making videos like in their bedroom, and I was like, well, man, I don't know. I've got a bedroom here and a camera, and I know some editing software, and I'm majoring in communication, and like I think I could be funny. Like I remember watching all those viral videos with like Ben and our friends. We'd all just gather around the computer, and everybody would be like, oh wait, have you seen this one yet? Or oh, well, look up this, or you look up like sketch comedy. And I always felt like we could do this. We're this funny, and everyone would be like, nah, this is way more produced than you think. Like we're not that good. And I was like, you know what? I can just do it myself. So I just I started making videos in my room, and much to my surprise, people started watching them. It was like this really exciting thing, and it was like figuring out what I had always sort of wanted to do, but there was never like a real answer to grab onto. Right. Like, you're growing up and people are always like, what do you want to do? What do you want to do? I was like, I don't really know. But once I started doing it, it felt like this is what I want to be doing. Unfortunately, in 2009, it wasn't like anyone really was a full-time content creator. That wasn't really a job that existed so much. It was much more like if anyone was doing it, it was like 10 people, and they were the 10 most successful people on YouTube.
Right. And what were your early videos about?
Oh boy,
a faulty thermostat. I think was the first ever video.
One. It was the faulty thermometer.
I'm sorry.
My very first YouTube video ever was about I was sick one weekend at college, and I had this rule in my head that if I don't I need to have a temperature before I go to the doctor or something, or maybe that was just the sickness talking, but it was like this crazy snow day outside and I felt terrible, and I was like, I just need to go get a thermometer. And I remember summoning this willpower for several hours to walk half a mile down to the food line to buy a thermometer so I could come home. And then it didn't work. It was broken. And not only that, but it had this instruction sheet that was 10 pages long and unfolded massive. And it's like, there's one button on this.
It does one thing.
It does one thing, and it can't even do that.
Right.
So that was what my first video was about. But it was a lot of sketch comedy, just sort of things. I would have a silly observation, and I would talk about it, and then I would act it out, and then I would talk about it, and that would sort of be it. But that's what I did in college, and that was just me. And then,
how'd you rope this guy in?
Yes,
that's the question.
That's the question.
I'm still not sure.
I know. So eventually, I graduated the next year, and I had to go into the real world, and I got a real job, actually over at the Roanoke Civic Center, or the Berglund Center now. Mm-hmm. I did the marketing over there for about 5 years. But about 2 years into that, I had put John Carlin on the back burner. I had my real job, but that YouTube bug was there, and so I thought okay, let me start again. And I've got some experience this time. I learned so much making the other videos on the other channel. And I was really watching the Vlog Brothers a lot at the time. That's John and Hank Green, who are still massive.
Yeah.
They're awesome. And we've gotten to meet them and stuff since then, which has been really cool. But they started their whole YouTube thing by doing this thing called Brotherhood 2.0, where they just took turns uploading videos for a year, and that was the only way they communicated. So John would open a video to Hank on Monday, and Hank would respond the next day. And I was like, Ben, we could do that. I loved that idea. I thought it was so cool. I thought it's this can't miss. This is so good. And I have a brother who is the funniest person I've ever known, and there's no way it doesn't work. If we do this, it will work. I was positive of it. And so Ben at the time time was just graduating from Radford, and he needed a roommate because he didn't want to move back in with mom and dad.
Yep. And that was really the only bargaining chip that I think Jay had at his disposal at all. I mean, we grew up and our dad was like the local TV news anchor. He still is for, WSLS, and it was like one of these things for me growing up where for a long time people would ask like, oh, are you going to follow in your dad's footsteps? Like, are you going to be, like a news anchor someday? And I remember, I think in 3rd or 4th grade, there was a speech contest that I was a part of.
Yes.
And this was like one of those things like where dad, he sat down with me and we were at the computer and we were like typing the whole script out.
Like the secret advantage.
Yeah, exactly. I
Right.
mean, this was like, I was like, not to brag, but I'm a prodigy, potential here. No, I mean, but like, I felt like it could potentially like be in my blood or something. And I was like, okay, like maybe I've got this. Maybe I've got this. And so, I gave the presentation like on the classroom level and I was like selected to go on to like finals or whatever, which was like
cool.
a local thing. And so they took us from this like, like classroom competition where you went and you were like presenting your speeches for judges and all the rest of everything. And I did my thing. And they got to the award ceremony and, they're reading it off. And they're like 3rd place, 2nd place. And they're like, and 1st place is Ben Carlin. And, it's this huge, exciting moment. And like dad couldn't be there because he's doing the news. They hand me the plaque. I go back to the table, sit down with my mom. And I'm like, Dad's going to be so proud. And, like I was so excited when all of a sudden on the microphone, you could hear them saying, Ben, we made a mistake. And
I know.
They actually called me back up on stage and they had read the results of the competition backwards.
Right. So
no.
not only had you not won,
I came in last. Right. And so I had to hand the plaque back. And actually, the other girl who was selected from my classroom, in fact, won with her fantastic speech about dolphins. And so I think from that moment, I was like, it's not in my cards. Like, I'm not supposed to be a public speaker. I'm not supposed to be behind a camera. This is not for me. I'm going to abandon that, like, hope and dream. When people ask the question, I'm just going to say no. That is not my plan. So I went to Radford University. I double majored in business marketing and management and came out of school and literally was planning to do a commercial aquarium installation company.
Yeah.
Which I actually did and still own to this day. But really the big thing was the issue of income. Aquariums, not necessarily always the most profitable endeavor. And so I couldn't afford to live on my own. And so the only thing that Jay had that could convince me to get in front of the camera was I needed a roommate. And so it was a year-long conversation, which I think was enough time to like put the hook in me.
Yeah, pretty good bargaining chip there. And I have to ask, how did growing up with a TV news broadcaster, for those who might have missed that, your dad is John Carlin. He's been the main anchor at WSLS and a reporter, very long time, very established here in the area. How did that influence your storytelling and video creation and production?
I would say quite a bit. I mean, we grew up with it, seeing him on TV all the time. And, you never went out to dinner with dad without someone being like, oh, I love seeing you on the TV. And, he'd stand up and, shake their hand and take a picture. And
he would remember everyone, too.
Yeah.
Like, to his credit. Like, he's so great. He's like, oh, yeah, we did the story at Ferrum. And, he would remember everything. But, yeah, the other big thing that our dad did in addition to that, though, was like the home video thing. So he was really good about, like, documenting all of the big special moments of our lives. And at the end of the year, he would literally go through and using like the editing bays at the TV station, he would create what he would call the year in Carlin.
That's so cool.
It was amazing.
I mean, it was just this thing that like it felt like it was really cool because every year at Christmas he would give us the next year in Carlin. We'd all watch it and you'd have this great like not just like home videos that you shot this year, but this like curated storytelling thing. And like back then they didn't have Final Cut Pro or anything like that. You couldn't edit videos on your phone. You basically had to have an editing bay like they had at the TV station, or else we're like really putting your VCR to its max.
He was definitely in an incredibly unique position to do it. But basically that meant that as of 1994, I would argue he was on the very early cutting edge of creating the first vlog that was just ever made.
Right, yeah. It was he was vlogging before YouTube existed.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, really. So you guys were used to having your lives on camera, and this seems like a pretty natural transition then to doing the YouTube channel.
Yeah. I mean, well, like I said, like when I was at Tech, I was majoring in like communication, and I was sort of heading down like the news side of things. And I was learning as I was doing that, like, you know, all these great skills, and I enjoyed, you know, doing the editing and shooting the videos and talking to the people. What I found I really was like not that interested in though was the news itself, like.
Like the actual thing you
yeah,
are
the actual thing. It's like
on?
everything around it is great. The content is just not appealing to me.
Just a tad bleak.
And so yeah, it's like man. So but then I basically, thankfully for me, like YouTube was just right there, and it was just everything I liked about everything I was learning in class. But I could make the content about whatever I wanted.
So speaking of making that content into something that you guys enjoyed and were passionate about, in 2012, you posted a video to your channel that would change your lives and eventually lead to YouTubing full time.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Okay, so the video is called The Pixar Theory.
Yes.
And at this point, I think it's pretty widespread, or people have heard of it, or maybe they don't know the full thing. Maybe they haven't heard the video, but
I have to say, so I grew up in Detroit, Michigan.
Yeah.
Like in, well, really like downriver Detroit in a suburb. But somebody sent me that video.
No
like,
way.
I swear, when I was in like high school or something, I think maybe my brother did, because I looked it up while I was putting together the outline, and I'm like, okay, I've definitely seen this before.
Nice.
So, and I had no idea that I would one day move here and that you guys were based here, that I'd meet you, but I just want to say I was like so tripped out by that.
Yeah.
That is remarkable and amazing.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, that I do remember for a little while there was this like piece of that where it was the only real viral piece of content that we have, and we were, you know, we do like a lot of skiing and snowboarding and stuff up at Snowshoe, and I remember we'd be like on the ski lifts, and there's the obligatory like conversation for 15 minutes as you're
Sure.
going
Yeah,
up,
like-
and we would frequently have that, like we'd be like, so what do you guys do? And we would, instead of telling about our real jobs, be like, we're YouTubers.
Yeah, you know.
You may have seen us, the Pixar Theory.
Right.
And very, very frequently it would like a little light bulb would go off, and like the person was like, I have seen that, and it was like, you know, I think it was our first like kind of like taste as to the thing like that Dad was always experiencing, which would, you know, people coming
Yeah.
over and saying like, love you on the news. It was like, it was the first time we ever kind of had somebody be like, yes, I know that thing.
Yeah, I saw that thing you made.
Yeah. So
It was
really
very unique. I mean, because I recognized it because I don't think I'd seen anything like it before.
Yeah.
So how did you come up with it?
Well, I will say this, that we did not invent the Pixar theory itself, per se. The original article was written by a guy named John Negroni, who actually is from Lynchburg, if you can believe it.
Oh my
and we
gosh.
did not know
Completely
that.
randomly, yes.
Completely randomly.
Yeah.
He's a great guy. He's like, he does movie reviews and stuff now. He's really cool. But I just, you know, I was talking to our other brother, Tyler, one day about how me and Ben had just watched, you know, a bunch of Pixar movies over the weekend because we had a snow day. And he was like, oh man, have you heard about this thing called the Pixar theory? And I was like, nope. And he showed me the article and I read it and I was like, this is so cool. And I'm like, I needed a topic to talk about the next day on the vlog.
Right.
And you know, that was always the thing. Like, you have one more thing to talk about, and it was like, well, this is really cool, so I'm going to just tell people about it. And so I made a video about it, and we linked it up to his article, and it just like it just went viral. And I don't know. Like, today, it seems like everyone knows about the Pixar theory. Every Pixar movie comes out, people are like, how does it fit in? And, you know, every website out there will have their version of that article. But I somehow, some way, I think we were just like the first good video detailing the Pixar theory.
Yes.
And it was like more accessible than the very lengthy like written article.
Right. And so
Yeah.
I think the best thing that we could maybe take some credit for is the popularization, you know, in terms of bringing it to the forefront. And then we've expanded it, you know, a lot ever since then. And everything since that first video has sort of been like our own version of expansion of it. But
Yeah.
And I mean, what was wild about it, like Jay said, you know, you go in and we were making so much content, but we had, if I were to tell you what our show was about, it was like the worst elevator pitch ever. It was like, would you like to see videos about thoughts that I sometimes have while I'm driving my car?
Right.
You know,
You know.
it's like there was no central subject.
Right.
Like,
It was like, what was appealing about it was the challenge of, could we do it or something?
right.
Yeah.
And I think what the Pixar theory ended up really doing was kind of like showcasing to us that these films, these topics, like a lot of the stuff that we consumed as kids and still loved into adulthood, we were like, every time we do talk about this stuff, it does start to collect more views. Whether we were doing it, even intentionally or not, it was almost like we were accidenting our way, or just experimenting so much with different styles of content that we were trying to find like what worked. And I think probably the big shiny flag that the Pixar theory was for us was like, hey, here's your marker. Here's where to start. Here, like, pull on this thread.
Boom.
And from there, that's really what we started doing, and that's when you started to see the views come in, the subscribers show up.
Yeah.
How did this change your approach then to content creation and your brand once you found that trend?
I would say it took us embarrassingly long to make like the full-on pivot.
Yeah.
Because we made it and it was going viral, and it felt like, and then like all of a sudden, I think we had, I think like 10,000 subscribers or something when we made the video, and like all of a sudden it was really starting to jump up. Like people were coming in at a much faster rate. And like, I think in our eyes, it was like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. This video is bringing in lots of subscribers. And now we have like more of an audience to catch our like, daily thoughts from our other, the rest of the videos we're making. Like,
yes.
Yeah. Like now we have an entryway. And once they get in the door, they'll see how great the other videos are. But the answer was that like, no, they came here for the Pixar theory and related content. And then if you're uploading another video about like how to eat an everything bagel, like that's not interesting to them.
Right. Yes. And I think that was exactly as you said. It almost took us like an embarrassingly long period of time. So it's the type of thing where it's like if you were handed the keys to like a 1 million subscriber followership, social media platform of any kind, it's like you would still need the right thing to kind of please those customers, so to speak, which was really interesting. So we went from like 10,000 to like 60,000 subscribers, but we were still only getting like 2,000 to 3,000 views per upload because we were still kind of just continuing to do what we had always done. And, the Pixar theory had kind of been this like one-off anomaly. And I think for us, it was like this big thing, like where we had these like 2,000 extremely like loyal like viewers. Like they would comment on every single video. They would always show up in spades. We knew them as well as they knew us. Like you could count on a comment from Jacob, when you just knew that every single video Jacob would be there. And so I think for a lot of it was like we had done it for 2 full years at this point in time. And there was something where you were like, well, you don't want to like turn away those people who were there with you from the very beginning by all of a sudden just sort of like doing this drastic shift. And so I think there was a huge part of us that like wanted to maintain true to those original viewers.
Right. It was like, look, these people are like hardcore. Like they're proof that we're succeeding.
Right.
Kind of way. And it's like, and I think, we were succeeding in a certain way, but it wasn't in like a massive way that was going to like make money or anything.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's that. And this is still on the very, very, very early end of things where like the consideration of truly doing it as a career was not something that we had fully placed on the table
Yeah,
yet.
not really.
And it would probably take at least 2 more years before that consideration even came into play.
Yeah,
Oh,
for
okay.
sure. Like, so the longer the Pixar theory had existed and more people came in, every now and then, like, a different theory would float across our desk, and it would be like, oh, man, this is great, because if I make another theory video, that'll probably get a lot of views on it.
Right.
And so we did one about, like, who was Jesse's original owner? Was it Andy's mom? And then I know we did one about, like, Frozen. We did a couple of Star Wars ones, and they all kind of, like, picked up steam. And eventually we were just like, let's make the full-on pivot to just fandoms and see how it goes, because, like, who knows? And I think at the time it felt like, are we going to be able to think of enough stuff?
Right.
Can we make these things up?
And realistically, it's like now, like a new Pixar movie, a new Star Wars or Marvel movie comes out, and like
Right.
people do look to us as like authorities in some capacity. Like they want to know like what our kind of unique way in is or whatever. But at the time, we did not have that confidence in ourselves. Like it wasn't something where we felt like we had some unique perspective to offer to this particular equation. We were just sort of finding that like the further we went, the more that it worked. And it was kind of like, it was very slowly confidence building in some capacity. But like I remember reviewing a movie for the first time and being like, I'm not I didn't go to film school. Like, I've never
kind of like imposter syndrome.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think every single creator in some capacity, and I mean, we've talked to many of them, throughout our kind of like travels doing this stuff. I think all of them have imposter syndrome.
No one can really believe the position they're in.
Yes, it's always sort of shocking, because I suppose back in the day, if you were like an actor, you were going to come on and be like a part of a TV show, you had like a studio, like a network, an agent. You had casting people that they were like kind of telling you like, yeah, no, you're good. Like what you're doing is spectacular and we have hired you as a result of that. So now you are on a screen and look, amazing. And this is like, two guys in their basement.
Right.
With a Sony Handycam. I mean, I think we had 300,000 subscribers and we were still using the original.
Yeah, the original camera. We didn't have like a separate audio recorder or anything.
Right. Well, yeah.
It was all the onboard mic and yeah.
Yep. I was still using iMovie. I never had even upgraded to Final Cut or anything like that. So yeah, it was very low tech.
So fast forward to today.
Yeah.
You've come a long way from your basement.
Yes.
What does a day in the life of full-time YouTubers look like for you now?
So it does look a lot different. Once upon a time, it looked like I went to my full-time job and then I came home at 5:30 and I scarfed down dinner and I would go in the basement and write a script and then shoot the video and then edit the video and then upload the video all in the same night.
Hopefully by midnight.
That was like the cutoff, the imaginary cutoff line. You got to beat the day. Nowadays, it is much different and it is way different than I ever thought. Like, even when we started, like you'd have like these morsels of success and it would be like, what would be great is if I could make enough money to just live off of and quit my job. That'd be great. Like, right. I don't even need, that was it. I would take a pay cut to stop going to work and just like, I'll wake up and make a video in the morning and that'll be it. Cause that's how long it normally takes anyway.
Right.
And that'll be great. But it so quickly went, far and beyond. Like that was my end goal, take a pay cut from work and just live that way.
Right.
And then I never dreamed we would have an office. I never dreamed it would be like full time, 40 hours a week. I never dreamed we'd have staff. All of which is true now. I think in like 2015, I like finally was able to like quit my job and I went full time. And at that point, I was just working out of my house. I'd gotten married by then, and me and my wife had a house. And then a year later, Ben quit his job and made the jump over. And I guess he was still doing some aquarium stuff on the side.
Yes, yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
But and then I think it was like a few months of you and I working together before we hired our first like full-time employee.
Yep.
Like where we were like, we probably need benefits, not just for them, but for us too. And,
yeah, like do we need to like form a corporation or
right? Yeah.
So we had to do all these like businessy things, and then it was me and Ben and our editor, and we were working out of this room that was probably not much bigger than this room.
That's generous, I think.
Yeah, that's generous. Yeah. So we were we would like if like the desk was over there, the set was like right here, and the editor desk was right there, like just 1 inch out of frame. Right. And it was like we would shoot it all in the same room, and then Ben and Derek would leave my house for the day, and that would be it. That's where they would come to work.
Right.
And then so from there I was like, well, clearly the three of us can't just work in this room. We needed an actual office. So then even though we didn't have like an office, we worked out of like an apartment.
Yep.
Then
we had a place to go.
Yeah, we had a place to go. We had a place of work. And then because we hired an editor, we would it freed up so much time and we could make so many more things and we could respond to more emails. And all of a sudden it was like, well, now there's so many emails to respond to and so many like obligations we have that we almost need another person to manage it all. So that's how we hired our next person. And so it just sort of went from there. At this point, we have moved offices 3 times.
Yep.
So we work in downtown Roanoke, which is something really cool. I also never thought would, be a thing.
Right. No, it's amazing. Yeah. That for like our lunch break, it's like, oh, we can just like pop down and go to like all of our favorite eateries because they're all right here.
Yeah. I love living downtown.
Yeah.
It's the best.
It's so great. Yeah. And I feel like Roanoke doesn't get enough credit for its food.
It doesn't.
Yeah.
It doesn't. And it's so accessible. It's so walkable. You have such a variety to go to. Like I said, I'm from the Midwest. So everything there, it's just not walkable. You just have to drive everywhere. That's the way things are set up. Or even if you live downtown, not everything is in this like cute little Gilmore Girls-esque atmosphere.
Right, yeah.
Like, that's how I felt when I first moved to Roanoke and saw Center in the Square and all the different things there are to do downtown. It was so cool.
Yeah.
It is super cool. So, but yeah, so I mean, it grew a lot. The team grew. I think we learned a lot more. We kind of grew some confidence along the way as well. Since then, we've got a gaming channel. We have a podcast. We launched a coffee company.
Yep.
And in addition to that, we've done like meetups all over the country. We've gotten to work with Disney and Star Wars, and just kind of like popped up. We've been to like London to work with Google Arts and Culture. Like there's been like some just opportunities where over and over and over again, like like Jay and I will look at each other and like, is this the coolest thing?
Right.
Like the coolest thing may have now officially happened.
Right.
Like, and it's like, if that's the case, there's a huge amount of like content yourself with like that idea where it's like, if we've had some unbelievable opportunities, and if nothing else ever comes from it, then it's like, no matter what, we get to keep those forever.
Right. Yeah. We got to do all these things.
Yes.
And so you guys have mentioned how you do get a lot of emails, you get a chance to go through what your fans are asking for. How does your subscriber base then influence your work, whether it's comments for different video requests or just the community that you've been able to see be formed from people watching your content?
And I think the word community is a good one to bring up, because I don't know that like when you think of like a content creator, someone who's kind of like doing this stuff, that's on the TikTok or the YouTube or whatever. I don't know that everybody thinks about the fact that there kind of is in a sense like a relationship that is built between you, the person who's on the camera, and then also the people who come to tune in. And we've been really lucky, and I think one of the things that Jay and I have emphasized from the very beginning is just positivity. Like, we're not here to, like, we talk a lot about like media and new movies and stuff like that, but we try to celebrate what's great about these things rather than go in and tear them down. And I think what we've found as a result is that the internet is not always a nice place to go, but our corner of it seems to be like it's a very positive environment. We don't have a lot of issues like with trolls or negativity or any of those types of things.
Well, that's great.
Yeah, it's been amazing. And I think for us, we do see a lot of suggestions from those people who tune in where they might be like, hey, can you guys start covering like Avatar: The Last Airbender is a super popular TV show that came out on Nickelodeon actually when we were growing up a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think it's really like garnered a lot of popularity in the modern age, and so as a result, it's kind of like, we've got like our usual lineup, like Disney, Pixar, Star Wars, Harry Potter, Marvel, and then it's kind of like, if as that demand increases, as you see those comments being left, you're like, we'll give it a shot. We'll see what happens. And more often than not, like when you do listen to those things, it's like, oh wow, like it turns out that the overlapping circles, the Venn diagrams, it's like this one fits our puzzle really nicely.
Yeah.
And so it's good to listen when possible to those suggestions and take them and try. So to this day, we continue to experiment and try new fandoms and see like what people might latch onto.
Yeah, I mean, and the community has especially like when we were like just sort of exploding at the beginning, it was this weird position to be in where you don't, when you think of doing YouTube, you mostly think of just like someone sitting in front of a camera and talking, but like you don't imagine all the extra like weird responsibilities that come with that. With like suddenly you're like because almost always communities will form around like online spaces or creators or something, and all of a sudden you're like the figurehead of this thing, and like how is that going to work, or how am I going to communicate? And I know to this day we still have like a really great Discord server, and when we first launched that, it was really cool to see like all these people like sort of flood in there, and there was this like flourishing community of people, and it was like so fun. We would lose so much time just going there and chatting with the people and like getting to know people.
They very affectionately nicknamed themselves the Distraction Squad, because they were so good at distracting us.
Yeah. So we would get stuck down there, and then like all of a sudden I remember one day Ben just like put in the Discord server like, who wants to do a Spartan race in DC, and like all of a sudden it was like a lot of people. We had like 40 people show up and do a Super Carlin Brothers Spartan race with us.
Everybody
and it was like
in bright neon yellow jerseys that said Super Carlin Spartans, and like we're in like 100-degree heat in Washington D.C., covered in mud, with people from all over the country and some outside of the country who had traveled to come and be a part of this event. And like if you were to ask me like some of my like absolute favorite moments, it's not things that we've said necessarily like on screen. It's like those moments where like I remember doing the Spartan race for the first time. There was this girl, and she was terrified. She was so worried. And we got up to this like mud wall, and you basically had to go underwater to go underneath the mud wall in order to get to the other side. And this
sounds
is like
really elaborate.
I know it does, but like, it's like one of these things, like I'm standing there like with this person who like I've known for about like 47 minutes, and like, we're having like a heart to heart. I'm like, we can do this. It's
going
I'm right there with you. We've got this. And like this girl, I mean, she looked terrified. She was pale. She goes under, comes up on the other side of that wall, and she was like a different person.
She was like baptized in that moment.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, it was incredible. Like it was like watching somebody be empowered right before your eyes. It was like, I can do hard things, and it was like, I mean, that was so special, because this is like, no other way would I have ever found myself in this situation where I had this relationship with this person, and yet here we are.
Yeah, and it was so cool to see how like these people who had just been interacting like in completely isolated online spaces come together like in person, and like we do monthly Zoom calls as part of like one of our Patreon tiers. And it's been crazy because the people who have been on those calls have been the same people who've been on the calls for like 6 years now.
Yeah, they will.
Oh my
like,
gosh.
Yeah, like they all came to us independently, but at this point, like I don't even know that Ben and I need to show up anymore.
Yeah.
They're just better friends with each other.
Right.
And they're not just sort of like, oh yeah, you're that person I see on the call once a month. They're like, we'll travel across the country to hang out with each other, like they're best friends. You know? It's like, this is wild. Like we made videos and now you people are friends.
Right.
Yeah. So that always blows my mind.
Yeah, the community aspect. I mean, there's just no denying like the absolute force that it is. But it really at the end of the day is one of the most fun aspects of everything that we do is getting to see those people.
Yeah, and then you guys had that live event at GoFest for your new podcast, Popcorn Culture. Mm-hmm. What was that like to see those fans in person?
Oh, well, that was amazing because in 2019, we had started doing like movie meetups where we would like rent out a theater somewhere in the country, and we'd go do it around a movie release, and people would buy the tickets and then come, and we'd all watch the movie together, and we'd do meet and greets, and it was like we had a lot of momentum going into that, and then COVID happened, and that was the worst. And then it was like movies. I don't think so. Yeah, and it's almost still what it's like. But so that was a real bummer. But then last year at GoFest here in Roanoke, we did a live performance of our podcast, Popcorn Culture, and that was like our first like venture back into like public meetups, and it was just so cool to see people, because we've never done one in Roanoke before. And so we advertised this one. We thought it was great because like we didn't have to organize the event at all. We just had to tell people to show up, and we weren't even selling tickets. It was just like, if you just free. If you can get here, it's free. So come on down. And like, we I think you mentioned earlier, like we have a coffee company, so we'd also set up a tent for our coffee company at GoFest, and it was right next to the stage where it was going. And throughout the whole weekend, we're seeing other people go on the stage, and they'd have like 10, 15 people come up and like sit down and watch their performances or whatever they were talking about, and that was great. And I was like, oh my gosh, what if no one shows up? This is gonna be. We had
no idea what to do.
No idea.
If you sell tickets, at bare minimum, you have a baseline for how many people will be there, and this was just a open call that was like, if you come to Roanoke, you can see us do a live performance, and we will take a picture with you afterwards if you want to. And so like we got up there, and we like the stage is set, like it's our time. It's like we walk over and like we look up at the hill. It's a grass hill that everybody's going to be sitting on, and it's just full. It was
like 300 people or something.
And it was
like, this is crazy,
absolutely remarkable. When we had people come up afterwards, and they had come from like again all over the country just to come and be a part of it, check out all the things. 'Cause we talk about Roanoke a lot on the podcast. Like we love living here. We were born and raised here. Like,
wow. So how do you think that has affected then people coming here to visit, or just putting it on the map?
We've sent Blue Cow ice cream some business. I know that much for sure. The sea salt brickle. Quality.
The Blue Ridge Burger at Tap Room. People have tried that.
There's some funny things. So I mean, it's a curiosity for sure. Like I know that like when people were here, the fans who were coming had actually created their own like chat room server to talk about where they wanted to go, what they were going to do. So like people were, they were like one night they were hitting up local routes. The next day they were all getting up in the morning to hike up Mill Mountain together. And you're like, it's like to us, these are like local landmarks. They're important to us. Like we've done these things, and we love these things. But to see these people who are not from the area come and like want to do them, it was something super special.
Yeah, it was really cool.
I don't know if that answered your question.
Yeah, no, it did. I mean, because this is something we try and tell to our clients too. I mean, you've touched on a couple things from your YouTube experiences. One, the importance of visual content, because not everybody was going to read that research paper on the Pixar theory, for example, but watching a video that is so much more digestible when you have somebody who is much more like a peer explaining it in a fun way.
Right.
That's crucial, and we're seeing that so much on TikTok and Instagram. People want those very, very short videos now with that digestible content if you're trying to get your message across. And then especially as we've seen with, tourism marketing and influencer marketing to get people to come to certain places. I mean, having that community to tie them in, especially with content creators like you guys, it just goes to show how effective that is.
Oh yeah. A case in point would be just a few weeks ago, we were talking about some of the like most extraordinary experiences we ever had. We were actually reached out to and invited down to experience the new Tron Light Cycle attraction at Disney World. And what that entailed was, as far as Disney is concerned, they brought down like this kind of like big wave of influencers, content creators across a variety of different platforms. And the idea was just like give these people an action-packed schedule. So like while we're down there, I mean, they just had like one thing after another all laid out for us. And the whole idea was if we can have these people come down and they're tweeting about it, they're posting Instagram stories, they're posting TikToks. We posted like a 30-minute vlog about our entire experience of being down there. And I think that like what was so cool to me about it is that Disney didn't come down and give us deliverables. They didn't give us requirements. They weren't saying like, well, we need 3 stories and it needs to include this and like, this, that, or the other than the obvious disclosures that we were hosted. But, as a result, I think what they get, and to your point, is that like we just had like a free for all, and so while we were down there,
whatever, have fun, and story about it.
Right. We posted hundreds of pieces of like small bits of content about it, and for us, we're talking to an audience that's very leaned in on all things Disney, and so for them, it's a great opportunity to showcase what the parks have to offer. For us, it's an incredible opportunity, and I think for our fans, like they even like to see what it's like. Like doing something like this. Like they had us hooked up, so we had like a ride cam footage of us riding the new roller coaster.
Right. Yeah.
Which is just like a really unique perspective on it, where like almost nobody other than the people who work for Disney have ridden it so far.
Right.
And we got to walk up, and they gave us like ride it as many times as you want. There is no line.
Yeah.
And so we did. Yeah.
How many times did you ride it?
7.
Yeah. At which point I think me and Ben could have gone all day. Our wives were a little like, oh God, I think we need to take a break.
Yeah.
Like, this is work. Actually, this is work.
I know. Yeah. It's like but that's the thing is like when you're standing there, that's what we mean. It's like this is work.
Right. This is
like,
work.
This is our job today.
Right.
That is kind of mind blowing.
It is
when you think about it.
Oh my God. And it was so much fun.
Yeah.
It was so cool.
And what do you think is the biggest lesson then that you guys have learned from being YouTubers?
Oh my gosh. I don't know.
the biggest thing that I feel like I've come back to here lately is you just never know where you are in your journey. And like, so again, if you would have gone back to so the first year we made 5 videos a week for a whole year. That's 260 videos that we made inside of 1 year. And at the end of that, we didn't earn enough revenue to like pay for dinner somewhere. Like there wasn't like a lot of like revenue coming back.
Yeah, I think I don't know if it's still the case, but at the time, like if YouTube wouldn't pay out unless you had earned at least $100 in ad revenue.
Correct.
And so I think it was like every like 2 months or something, there was like maybe we'll get like $120 check or something.
Right.
Yes.
So it was pretty nominal in the scheme of things in terms of like where we were going with this, and the impact that it was certainly having, because we're still working full-time jobs at the same time. So like for the like our relationships, our friends, our hobbies and everything, they like, you're trying to navigate these waters where you're coming home from a day of work, you're spending until midnight working on your video for that day, writing, shooting, editing, posting, all the rest of it. There are so many points in that process where we could have thrown our hands in the air and said we gave it our best shot. We tried really hard, and like we couldn't have done anything else. There's nothing more we could have done to see if we could have made it on this platform. And I think like I would always credit Jay, honestly, because I think he had like a tenacity of spirit about it, and like an infectious enthusiasm to keep going, where I think I would have stopped, honestly. And I think that it was the resilience and maybe even a little bit of accountability to each other.
For sure, yeah.
Like,
I think that helps a lot when people set out to do this sort of thing. It's very easy to like start doing and put a lot of effort in and not get a lot out of it, and then just feel like I don't even know what's the point,
right?
But we had this like challenge outlined, and we it wasn't like if I came home and Ben was supposed to make a video and it was like 7:00, it could be very much like, you better get going.
Right, yeah.
Because we're 80 days in.
Right, yeah. Exactly, yes. So we're not going to be the one to, I don't want to be the one to not upload now. But when you were like, 2 years into that process, and there wasn't necessarily that like monetary like feedback that could just give you a little bit of comfort that you're using your time in a way that was going to ultimately pay off. Like that's what I mean. It's like we could have left off there, and we would have felt like we gave it such a great shot,
right.
and just look back on it as like an experiment we did in our early 20s before we like started our families and stuff. But we did continue, and what we ultimately found was the peak of the mountain, so to speak. Like, we were climbing and climbing and climbing. We were getting tired and exhausted, and maybe like a little like the enthusiasm was waning, and then finally, you realize like, man, we're only 100 meters from the top right now. Like,
right.
we can do this.
Yeah.
And once you crest that summit, I think all of a sudden it was like, oh my gosh, like that was the thing for me. And I would look back on it all the time. I was like, there were so many moments where I wanted to give up. There were so many moments where I wanted to stop feeling like, I had to keep going with
right.
this. But then I'm so glad that I didn't at the same time, because it's presented these opportunities for us in a lifestyle and something we're really proud of.
Yeah.
That we'll always be proud of. Again, regardless of what happens in the next year, 5 years, or 10 years. So
yeah, I think maybe another lesson. I think, Ben, you might even have like a sign in your house that says this, but it's just like this. It's just. You'll think of something.
I do have a sign in my house that says exactly that.
Yeah,
a huge
it's like,
one.
That is one of those things where it's like, people ask us all the time, like, how do you come up with ideas? You ever heard you're going to run out of ideas? And it's like, absolutely, I'm afraid of that. Yes, it's my number one fear. But like, it's been my number one fear for like 10 years. And like, there has never been an upload day where we failed to get something up.
Right.
And it's like, it took like a very long time to sort of feel like, I don't always know what we're going to think of, but it's like at this point it's like, but I know we'll think of something.
Right,
yeah.
right. And it's probably the number one thing that I'm sure our crew would love for us to master.
Yes.
It's almost, I mean, we grew up, our dad was in that newsroom, and deadlines were like a big deal. I think he had a magnet on the fridge growing up that said, "Sorry, babe, I'm on deadline."
Yeah.
Which was like,
wow.
one of those things where it's like, you got to get the story out. Like, you got to do it.
You got to figure something out. And I mean, what you guys have going for you too is similar to news. Disney and Pixar and Marvel, there's always new content coming out.
Oh, man.
For those fandoms. I mean, it's almost never ending. My dad and I were joking about this before, because he was a Star Wars fan when he was a kid. And then the prequels came out when my brother and I were growing up. And then they did like another round, so it just keeps going.
Oh yeah, I mean, this is like, I sometimes joke that like, we won't live to see the last Star Wars movie or something.
Right.
You're gonna like die someday, and just like, yeah, they're gonna keep going. You won't see the end of the MCU. You won't see the end of Star Wars.
Oh, man.
I know, right?
I mean, looking back at just how far your channel and your brand has come, where do you see moving and growing next? Any big plans for the future? Where do you guys see this brand and the Super Carlin Brothers going in the next 10 or 20 years?
Oh man, I mean, it's a great question. Like, probably one of the most common sentiments we've expressed is that there is nobody alive today who's lived an entire career as like an online content creator, and so I think on some level there's that sentiment. Like, and we're extremely happy with where we are today. Like, I think. If you're a fan of like the Harry Potter series, you may know that like Slytherins are known for their like ambition, and we were both self-proclaimed Slytherins, and I think coming out of college, I had like goals and like things I wanted to hit and everything, and I it's fascinating to me because I do feel like we've reached a stage of this process where I'm like, I would love to continue to do what we do. Like, if we can continue to do it, if we can keep the ship afloat, like that would be absolutely amazing. Just in terms of like the baseline prospect for it would be to be amongst the first who had like done it as a full career. But I think, beyond that, like one of the things that we talk a lot about, just in our free time, almost as like a distraction from creating our content, is I think that some point in time we would love to contribute to one of these major fandoms in some capacity, whether it's Star Wars or Marvel or Harry Potter or something. Like, if we could be brought on as consultants, or if we could write for like an episode or something, or a show.
So cool.
Yeah, that would be that would feel like all of a sudden, you thought you were at the top of the mountain, and it was like, oh my gosh, there's a whole different peak.
I know.
Yeah,
Yes, there's a different mountain.
What? No, that would be So
yeah,
that would be really awesome, and that would be something to be reaching for, I suppose. I'm not even sure how you reach for it.
I mean, you guys have already done the research, so step one, right?
I know. I'm like, guys, come on. There's like, how many people know it as well as us? Like, we're out there. Give us a call.
Right, yeah.
We'll help.
We'll do our best.
We'll do our best, man. We'll tell people to watch it. We've got a big channel.
Does that count for anything?
Does that count for anything? Yeah, no, I don't know. I suppose a different thing to maybe give you guys a little shout out as well is that we should be launching our new website, just supercarlinbrothers.com, here within like the next month or something. So
Hey, yes.
which is being made by Access.
Yes,
oh my gosh,
is.
yeah.
Which we're so grateful for, because I don't
Yes.
think we ever could have figured it out on our own. And the website, we've seen the back end of it. We've seen how beautiful it is, and it's really amazing. So we are excited for like that possible, like frontier that we could delve into and see if there's anything out there. I feel like I've always jokingly in my head been like so Super Carlin Brothers, we always refer to it as like SCB, so it's like the SCBN, that's like ESPN, but like the Super Carlin Brothers Network.
Yeah, SCBN. Welcome to SCBN. Yeah.
I can see it now. You guys already have the plan in place. And yeah, we have amazing developers and creatives that
Absolutely.
have said great things about it. So I'm excited to see it in action when it goes live. Since this is the Access Success Podcast, could you both share a recent success story for you personally or professionally?
Oh man, well, I mean the big one. I don't even know if I've quite made it to the top of the mountain yet, so to speak. But growing up, the other thing that our parents did that we saw them do a lot was run. They were big time like runners, and we did like the drumstick dash here in Roanoke. Years and years and years. Jay and I were both cross country runners in high school at Cave Spring High School. And one of the things that I had never checked off my bucket list is running a marathon, which I have been training for all of this year so far, and I'm running on April 22nd in Nashville. The big hurdle that I need to get past, like in my training, was my 20-mile run, which I just did this past weekend. So that's been for me like one of the big barriers, where the further I got into it, the more I realized like this is hard.
Yeah,
like, this is I don't know how people do the Blue Ridge Marathon, like adding hills on top of distance. Like, I have so much respect, but that's been something where it's maybe been a long time since I had realized like, oh my gosh, like in order to do this, I'm going to have to push myself, to a limit that maybe I didn't realize I would have to. So, 20 miles, check mark. But so hopefully that 26.2 will also will come.
Oh, you're gonna get it, man. You're gonna crush it. It's gonna be great. I don't know if this counts as like recent. It's inside the last year, and it's something I'm still like riding high on.
That counts. Yep.
Yeah, it was. This would probably be a little more professionally, but last summer we were working on a series on the channel called What If Harry Was in Slytherin.
Yeah.
So we've been doing these like what if style videos, like what if one little thing changed? And this was an idea we came across because the Sorting Hat almost puts Harry in Slytherin instead of Gryffindor, and like if it did, how would that change the story? And that happens right away at the beginning of the story. So most of our what if videos are one-off. That's it. That's one episode. This one turned into, much to our surprise, like this giant 8-episode series. And I think since we've been doing YouTube, I don't think we've ever worked harder on anything.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It was probably one of the most creatively fulfilling things we've done.
Absolutely was. I mean, it was all I could think about for like 2 months. I was like having dreams about it.
Oh my
gosh. We would like stay up. I would be up until like 3 a.m. like trying to like, we got to write the script because it's, I've been listening to Goblet of Fire and I'm only on chapter 14 and we got to figure out how this is going to change the rest of the story.
Right.
And, we would end up with these crazy long scripts. Like usually they end up about like 5-6 pages or so. These were easily hitting like 20 per episode.
The whole saga is over 200 pages long.
Yeah, and it just felt like the entire office was just like laser focused on like, we got to make this. And it was like I don't know, it felt like we had the attention of like a whole brand new crowd of people like, whoa, what's happening over here? This is a really cool story. So we got to the end of it and it was like a real like, we did it.
I know.
We did it.
Yeah.
And I was just so proud of how it came out. And I was, that's one of our favorite successes. I think it was just it was very well received and people were sending us artwork from it the whole time.
Oh, that's
and
so cool.
Yeah, it was
really
really cool.
So how many times do you think you read the Harry Potter books to prepare for that? And
I mean, I've been reading the Harry Potter books like since they came out. I mean, I think we've each probably read the whole series like over 50 times at
Easily.
this point. Yeah.
I mean, it's one of those things where like, if you ever, in Raleigh Court and see me mowing my lawn, it's possible I've got Harry Potter playing in my headphones.
Yeah, right.
Like, that's what, like, it's nonstop, just like kind of like looking for that next morsel, that next piece of information you never really unpacked before. So
if you guys have a favorite fandom or franchise, would you say it's Harry Potter, or is that like trying to pick a favorite child?
Go ahead.
It's so difficult. I mean, it's probably the thing we've covered the most. Like we've joked before that like, we almost have like an honorary master's degree at this point because I don't know if anybody else has studied it as hard
or written as many things about it. Yeah, that would surprise me. But so Harry Potter is certainly the one we've covered the most, and it is the one that our audience receives the best.
Yeah.
So there is that, but then like it really just shifts around a lot. Like we don't cover Star Wars as much because they don't make as many new things all the time. But every time like we decide we're like, let's make a Star Wars video, like I will just have so much fun talking about Star Wars. It's just like. Yeah, this is like, and I'm like, oh yeah, we haven't made a video about this in a while, and it's like, this is so much fun to talk about, like, yeah.
Yeah, and then on the flip end of things, like we're also, we are just huge Disney fans. I got married at Disney World.
I saw that. Those pictures are gorgeous.
It was so fun. Like, and it's like one of those things like where my wife owns a bridal shop, here in Salem, and so it was like, surprisingly, if anything, I would almost say that like she's maybe had more of like a cynical perspective, like because she's just like she's been to like every wedding, she's seen everything. It's like it was hard to like impress her. So I had pulled like every string I had available and was able to call the head of Disney weddings the day I was planning to propose to my wife.
Yeah.
And I was talking to her on the phone and she was like, so when did you guys get engaged? And I was like, well, the ring is in my pocket. I'm proposing tonight. She was like, Ben, go get engaged. So I did that and we ended up getting married there and it was incredible. And we are, like big Disney, we're like Disney Vacation Club members, so like we do travel there a lot, with our families and everything. And Encanto, the movie that came out a couple of years ago, I think like hit my soul when I mean.
Yeah, I think we made like 15 videos about Encanto last year. But I'll give you the real answer. Our real favorite fandom is actually, we don't even talk about it on the channel. It's called The Name of the Wind.
The Name of the Wind.
Yeah.
It is our favorite. It's
I don't think I've ever heard of that.
This is the thing. It's written by a guy named Patrick Rothfuss. It's called The King Killer Chronicles. There are 2 books out of 3 books written so far. There's The Name of the Wind and The Wise Man's Fear, and the third book will be called The Doors of Stone, but it's been in production for 12 years now, so we're not really holding our breath.
Here's my prediction: is it's the next Game of Thrones.
It sounds Game of Thrones-esque.
Absolutely,
just the way that you were talking about
it's definitely just fantasy novel, but it also has like a young magician goes to school and learns magic and goes out into the world and does things, but it's also
where they got that from.
I know.
Haven't heard that one.
Heard that one before, but there's so much more to it than just that. But
I mean, congratulations on just both of those successes that you guys mentioned.
Thank you.
People have so much fun listening to you guys talking about these things and having fun talking about them. So where can they find more Super Carlin Brothers?
Oh man, well we're on TikTok and YouTube. We're just search Super Carlin Brothers, and you will find us on there. And then on Instagram, I am I can't believe I have an underscore in my handle, but it's at SCB. _Ben.
Yeah.
At SCB_Ben. And you're at John Carlin.
Yep, at John Carlin, JONKERLIN. So that's just like a remnant of my very first YouTube channel back in the day.
It's stuck.
That's where it's like I made all my social media handles then, and that's what they still are today. So it's John Carlin on Instagram and on Twitter. You can also check out our podcast, Popcorn Culture, wherever pods are cast.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, if you want to see some gaming stuff, we have Super Carlin Gaming on YouTube, where mostly we do Pokemon card unboxings at this point.
Yeah. So if you need just a mountain of content to consume, then
there is a lot.
We have it for you.
We got it.
And then soon you guys are going to have the website too that people can go to and find all the things.
Yeah, that's why we need the website. So it'll be like, where you can go to get Carlin Brothers stuff? Here. And then it'll take you everywhere else. So,
right. Yeah. Your hub.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So watch out for the website coming soon for the Super Carlin Brothers. Thank you guys again so much for being on the show. It was so fun talking to you.
Yeah,
oh my gosh, thank you for having me. Yeah, this was so much fun.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I can't wait to see the new website. Can't wait to see what you guys come up with next, new theories, everything like that. So if you'd like to watch that content, go check out the Super Carlin Brothers. Thanks for tuning in to the Access Success Podcast, and we'll see you next week. Thanks for listening to the Access Success Podcast, produced by Access U, a division of Access Advertising and Public Relations. Find us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram to keep up with what the world of education needs to hear, at Access U Agency, and connect with us at accessu.com. Let's do something big.